The power of inner virtue from the Analects of Confucius. The master said, "One who rules through the power of virtue is analogous to the pole star. It simply remains in its place and receives the homage of the myriad lesser stars." The point of this passage is that the spontaneous harmony brought about by heaven in the natural world is to be a model for the human ruler, who, in a wu-wei fashion, will bring the world to order silently, inevitably, and unself-consciously through the power of his perfected moral virtue. As Bao Xian notes, one who possesses virtue is wu-wei, and, like the pole star, does not move yet receives the homage of the myriad lesser stars. The master said, "The odes number several hundred, and yet can be judged with a single phrase, 'Oh, they will not lead you astray.'" The quoted phrase is from Ode 297. The original reference is to powerful war horses bred to pull chariots and trained not to swerve from the desired path. The metaphorical meaning is that one committed through study to the odes, yoked to them, as it were, will not be led astray from the Confucian way. The master said, "If you try to guide the common people with coercive regulations, zheng, and keep them in line with punishments, the common people will become evasive and will have no sense of shame. If, however, you guide them with virtue, and keep them in line by means of ritual, the people will have a sense of shame and will rectify themselves." This passage represents another expression of the theme of ruling through the power of virtue, wu-wei, rather than force. As Guoxiang notes, if you employ governmental regulations you may correct people's outer behavior, but in their hearts, they will not have submitted. Concerned only with expediency and evasion, they will behave shamelessly toward things. Is this not a superficial way of transforming people? Zhu Xi adds, although they will probably not dare to do anything bad, the tendency to do bad will never leave them. The master said, "At 15, I set my mind upon learning, at 30, I took my place in society, at 40, I became free of doubts, at 50, I understood heaven's mandate, at 60, my ear was attuned, and at 70, I could follow my heart's desires without overstepping the bounds of propriety." We have here Confucius' spiritual autobiography. We can see his evolution as encompassing 3 pairs of stages. In the first pair, stages 1 and 2, the aspiring gentleman commits himself to the Confucian way, submitting to the rigors of study and ritual practice until these traditional forms have been internalized to the point that he is able to take his place among others. In the second pair, the practitioner begins to feel truly at ease with this new manner of being, and is able to understand how the Confucian way fits into the order of things and complies with the will of heaven. The clarity and sense of ease this brings with it leads to the final 2 stages, where one's dispositions have been so thoroughly harmonized with the dictates of normative culture that one accords with them spontaneously, that is, the state of wu-wei. Some interpretations take the ear being attuned to mean that Confucius at this point immediately apprehends the subtle content of the teachings he hears, Zhengxian, some that there is no conflict between his inner dispositions and the teachings of the sages, Wang Bai, and some both of these things. As Li Chong explains, having an attuned ear means that, upon hearing the exemplary teachings of the former kings, one immediately apprehended their virtuous conduct, and following the models of the Lord, a reference to King Wen in Ode 241, nothing goes against the tendencies of one's heart. As Huang Can explains, by age 70, Confucius reached a point where training and inborn nature were perfectly meshed, like a raspberry vine growing among hemp, naturally standing upright without the need for support. Therefore he could then give free rein to his heart's intentions without overstepping the exemplary standards. Or, as Zhu Xi explains it, being able to follow one's heart's desires without transgressing exemplary standards means that one acts with ease, hitting the mean without forcing it. Meng Yizi asked about filial piety. The master replied, "Do not disobey." Later, Fan Chi was driving the master's chariot. The master said to him, "Just now Meng Yitzi asked me about filial piety, and I answered, 'Do not disobey.'" Fan Chi said, "What did you mean by that?" The master replied, "When your parents are alive, serve them in accordance with the rites. When they pass away, bury them in accordance with the rites and sacrifice to them in accordance with the rites." Confucius' initial response is ambiguous. The most natural way to take it would be, "Do not disobey your parents," and this is presumably how Meng Yitzi understood it. In his elaboration to Fan Chi, however, Confucius reveals that he had something else in mind. The locus of obedience should be the rites. There are differing interpretations concerning the identity of Meng Yitzi, with the most coherent identifying him as an official in Confucius' native state of Lu, the head of the Meng, Sun, clan of the Infa Mao's three families, de facto rulers of Lu, criticized in Book 3 for their ritual excesses. Confucius' elaboration of his answer to Meng Yitzi is thus intended as a rebuke of the three families in general, and Meng Yitzi in particular. Ritual propriety takes precedence over obedience to one's parents' unethical customs. The ritual excesses of the three families thus give Confucius' injunction to bury them in accordance with the rites and sacrifice to them in accordance with the rites added bite. Wei Guan notes that one may ask why Confucius did not give the full explanation to Meng Yitzi himself, and instead reserved it for Fan Chi. The answer, he says, is that Meng Yitzi wished to employ Confucius, and Confucius wished to use this encounter to demonstrate to Fan Chi that this was not the type of person worthy of compromise oneself for. The exchange is thus an educational opportunity for Fan Chi rather than Meng Yitzi, who is presumably beyond hope at this point. Meng Wubua asked about filial piety. The master replied, "Give your parents no cause for anxiety other than the possibility that they might fall ill." Meng Wubua 8 is the son of Meng Yitzi. The grammar of this passage is ambiguous, and many commentators and translators have taken it to mean, when it comes to one's parents, one is worried only that they may fall ill, but it is more convincing to see the focus as being upon the son's behavior. As Huang Can explains, the point is that a son should constantly be respectful, careful, and self-possessed, and should not engage in illicit behavior that would cause his parents undue worry. It is only the state of physical health that is something beyond one's ability to control or predict, and therefore worth worrying about. Zio asked about filial piety. The master said, "Nowadays, filial means simply being able to provide one's parents with nourishment. But even dogs and horses are provided with nourishment. If you are not respectful, wherein lies the difference?" The focus here is upon the importance of internal involvement when it comes to virtuous behavior, respect, jing, encompassing both a manner of behaving and an emotional attitude. Zixia asked about filial piety. The master said, "It is the demeanor that is difficult. If there is work to be done, disciples shoulder the burden, and when wine and food are served, elders are given precedence, but surely filial piety consists of more than this." A convincing way of understanding this passage is to see it as building upon and clarifying, in which case, demeanor, se, should be understood as referring to one's internal emotional state as revealed in one's features. As Zhai Hao puts it, the point of this passage is that even respect does not constitute filial piety unless it is accompanied by affection. Taking upon the burden of work to be done and offering sustenance are the sorts of things disciples or students do to show reverence for their elders. Serving one's parents, on the other hand, involves in addition deep affection, a harmonious disposition, and a willing heart. Xian Dian gives an historical example. When King Wen was the crown prince and participated in the court audiences of Wang Ji, his father, he would ask the eunuchs 3 times every day whether or not the prime minister was feeling well that day. When they replied that he was well, King Wen's demeanor became suffused with joy. When they replied that he was unwell, King Wen's demeanor became filled with anxiety. He would be so shaken that even his gait became unsteady. This is what is meant by, it is the demeanor that is difficult. True filial piety involves not only the respect due to any elder family member, but in addition a kind of spontaneous, profoundly affectionate bond. The master said, "I can talk all day long with Yan Hui without him once disagreeing with me. In this way, he seems a bit stupid. And yet when we retire and I observe his private behavior, I see that it is in fact worthy to serve as an illustration of what I have taught. Hui is not stupid at all." Here, in our first mention of Confucius' favorite disciples, Yan Hui, in the text, we get a clear indication that there is something special about him. Some commentaries, particularly the early ones, assume that the private behavior that Confucius observes is Yan Hui engaged in informal conversation with other disciples, while other commentaries believe that Confucius is observing Yan Hui's behavior when he is alone, in solitary repose. Line 3 of the following passage, "Discover where it is that he feels at ease," suggests that latter reading. In any case, the point is that Hui does not disagree or ask questions because he immediately comprehends everything that he is taught, suggesting that he might be one of those superior few who are born knowing it, unlike those such as Confucius who must learn in order to know the way. The master said, "Look at the means a man employs, observe the basis from which he acts, and discover where it is that he feels at ease. Where can he hide? Where can he hide? That is, how can his true character remain hidden?" A person's character is not properly judged by his words or his public reputation, but is rather revealed to one who carefully observes his actual behavior, comes to know something about his motivations, and discovers what he is like in private. It is in the details of one's daily behavior that true virtue is manifested. The good person feels at home in goodness. The master said, both keeping past teachings alive and understanding the present, someone able to do this is worthy of being a teacher. There is commentarial disagreement over whether this passage refers to keeping ancient teachings alive, or to keeping what one has previously learned in a lifetime current in one's mind so that one knows what to expect in the future. The role of the teacher would suggest the former. Li Ao points out, however, that passages such as 1.15, informed as to what has gone before, you know what is to come, seem congruent with the latter interpretation. The master said, "The gentleman is not a vessel." Qi, literally a ritual vessel or implement designed to serve a particular function, is also used metaphorically to refer to people who are specialized in one particular task. Although some commentators take this passage to mean that the gentleman is universally, rather than narrowly, skilled, the point seems rather that the gentleman is not a specialist. As Li Guangdi explains, we call a vessel someone who establishes a name for himself on the basis of a single ability. Consider Zilu's ability to collect taxes, Ran Yu's ability to serve as a steward, Gong Shihua's ability to regulate the etiquette of host and guest, and even Zigong's ability to serve as a precious jade vessel. These are all cases of being a vessel, in this sense. The learn ing of the gentleman emphasizes the perfection of virtue over attainment in the arts, and perfection in behavior over the mere accomplishment of tasks. Somewhere in Yan Hui's manner of seeing and hearing, speaking and moving, or Zhengzi's appearance, attitude, and demeanor, we can discern the working of virtue. This is what it means to not serve as a vessel. Taking this passage to mean that there is nothing the gentleman does not know or nothing that he cannot do is simply to fall back into the trap of vessel thinking.